In this video, I'm going to tell you everything you need to know about taking the GED test online. I'm going to talk about who can take the GED test online right now, what you need to take the GED test right now online, and what you can do if you're not eligible to take the GED test online yet. And I'm also going to talk about some of the controversies and the differences between the online version and the in-person test. So I know it's hard to believe because for many people, we never thought that the GED test would be available to take online, but it is real, and I'm going to put the source down below. This information in this video is coming directly from the testing service. So yes, the online GED testing is real. And I want to share an experience here from Miriam, and I'm really happy to hear that Miriam passed her test. She did it at home, and I asked her what it was like taking it at home, and she said it was less stressful without noise and distractions, and she said she was able to focus much better. So just wanted to share a quick positive experience that someone had taking the test online. Before we go any further, this should really go without saying, but I just want to make it clear that there are many scams out there, and you can only take the official online GED test through your account at GED.com. So any other website, or if you see anybody saying they took it through a different site, know that that's a scam. That's not accurate information. You have to take the test online through the GED testing service. So also please note that I'm doing my best to relay all the information that I know about taking the test online and all the info that the testing service has given out. But I'm just the messenger here, so if there's questions that you have about taking the test online that I don't answer here in this video, I recommend sending an email to the GED testing service. So let's talk first about some of the requirements that you need to meet to take the GED test. So first, your in-person test appointment was canceled. And second, you have to have passed 3 out of the 4 GED test subjects. The third requirement is that you scored green on the GED Ready Practice Test within 60 days. So in other words, you have to have passed that GED Ready Practice Test within 60 days for the last subject that you need to test for. So also, your state must participate. Now, I know that there's got to be somebody out there watching this video, maybe you, and you're thinking to yourself, I don't meet these requirements, so what should I do? Well, I encourage you to still stick it out with me here through this video, because the GED testing service eventually, as far as I know, they do want to make the test more widely available for more people here, so this information is still going to benefit you. And next I want to talk about the states that participate. So I'm going to read through these states here fairly quickly because I don't want to take up a lot of time on this part of the video, but you can pause the video at any time and read the list more in depth here. Also, I'll put a link down below again where you can look at this list more in depth. So the test online is available in Alabama, Alaska, Arizona, Arkansas, California, Colorado, Delaware, Florida, Georgia, Hawaii, Idaho, Illinois, Kansas, Kentucky, Maryland, Massachusetts, Michigan, Minnesota, Mississippi, Nebraska, Nevada, New Jersey, New Mexico, North Carolina, North Dakota, Oregon, Pennsylvania, Rhode Island, South Dakota, Texas, Utah, Vermont, Virginia, and Washington, Wisconsin, and Wyoming. Now, you might have noticed that some of these have an asterisk next to them. Like, for example, see how Texas has this asterisk next to it. And you might be wondering, what does that mean? Well, you should know that the states here with those asterisks, those are states that are offering either free or discounted testing. Now, if you do fall into these 4 categories, expect to receive an email from the GED testing service. So if right now, as you sit here, you're sure that you fall into these 4 categories, and if you still haven't gotten this email from the testing service, you can send them an email, contact them, and ask them about it. So if you don't see your state here, though, what should you do? Well, there's a couple different things to consider here. So it's possible that your state doesn't offer online testing yet. Now, another possibility, though, is that the GED isn't offered in your state. So believe it or not, a lot of people don't know this, but certain states don't have the GED test. And if you're from New York and you didn't know this, and I'm really sorry to break this news to you, because unfortunately I know that a lot of people from New York watch my videos, and a lot of them don't realize that the test that they have to take in New York, it's actually the TASC, which is spelled T-A-S-C. So Now, here are some things that I want you to think about here if you don't meet the requirements. So, unfortunately, I know that some people don't meet these requirements, and unfortunately, a lot of people probably don't meet these requirements right now. So, what I want you to note here, though, is that some testing centers are still open, and this depends largely on where you live. Also, you want to make sure that you're not doing something that you're not comfortable with doing, right? Because I would advise you to look for testing centers that are opened either near you, or even if you have to drive an hour or a few hours away, if you really want to get your GED testing done, note that that's always an option. You don't have to limit yourself just to testing centers that are 15-20 minutes away. If you're willing to drive or go like an hour or two or so away, you can probably find a GED testing center near you. I'm just guessing, but only do this if you're comfortable doing so, right? Because we are in a national pandemic right now, and I don't want you to do anything that you don't feel safe doing. But a lot of it also has to do with your state and local guidelines. Like some areas just aren't the testing centers aren't open, and it has nothing to do with the GED testing service. It just has to do with the local and state guidelines in your area. So unfortunately, this will exclude some people from testing. Now, also, if you don't meet these requirements, don't give up hope here. Keep practicing and make sure that you get your practice test scores up into the green, because the GED testing service, they do, as far as I understand it, they do want to make the test available online for more people. So make sure that you get your practice test scores up into the greens. Unfortunately, for international students, know that there's still no online version available. I want to just note here that the same advice applies to international students. Just keep working hard and keep studying. So now, for those that do meet the requirements, here's what you need to test. So you're going to need a computer and a webcam, and unfortunately, tablets and phones you can't use those just yet, and probably, I'm not sure if they're ever going to have an option to use tablets and phones, so you will need a computer and a webcam. So most modern laptops that have been made in the last couple of years are going to have a built-in webcam that should work for you. If you have a computer that doesn't have a webcam, then you'll probably need to go buy one. And unfortunately, that's not the cheapest thing to do, but hey, if that's what you got to do, that's what you got to do. Also, you'll need a reliable internet connection, and here's something that's interesting. You're also going to need to be in a private room with a closed door. And we're going to come back to some of this stuff when I talk about some of the controversies and some of the drama that's been heating up about this online testing, but I just wanted to mention what you'll need. And also, you can run a system check first. And again, there's all this information you're going to find it at this one link down below. You don't have to read a bunch of different pages, but there's an option to do a systems check to make sure that your computer or your laptop, whichever you're using, to make sure that everything is going to work okay. And the testing service recommends that you do the system check before you schedule your test and before you pay. And this is a good recommendation because I don't want you to say your test is scheduled for Tuesday and Monday night you run the systems check and you realize that your computer's not going to work for it. Then what are you going to do, because your test is scheduled the next day? So I think it's a good idea to do the systems check first. And so now let's talk about some of the controversies and some of the debate that's been going on among students and among some other tutors and teachers. So the first here is that the requirements are too restrictive right now, and unfortunately, I do agree. The requirements are very restrictive, and I know that there's a lot of people right now who are being held up with their career goals. Maybe you wanted to go and do firefighting or become a teacher, a vet, a nurse, a lawyer, whatever your goal is. If you wanted to go try to get that better job or try to get into college, I know there's some people that I've heard from who have already basically have job offers that have been given to them, but they have to pass the GED before they can get that job. And so I know that there's a lot of frustration and a lot of hard feelings right now among some students who really need to get the GED done. And hey, look, I really feel for you. I mean, I know it's frustrating, and but just know that right now, the reason why the requirements are so restrictive is because it is just a pilot version. So, meaning the GED testing service, they've never done online testing before, and so I think that what they're doing is they're starting with a small a small sample of people, right? So they're only making it available to a small subset of people because they want to see how everything's going to run. They want to see if it's going to run smoothly with just a small group of people first, and they want to try to work the kinks out before they make it available to more people. And while it's understandable, it's also, unfortunately, it's really holding a lot of people up. So another interesting thing here, though, is that the GED might eventually permanently be available online. And that's just my speculation here and my kind of theory from this. The testing service has never said one way or the other. As far as I know, this is going to be a permanent thing. But just something to keep in mind here, if the pilot works and they start allowing more people to take the GED test, it's possible that they'll permanently make it available online. So really a year or 2 years or a couple years down the road here, we might actually see GED testing move online, or definitely at least a mix between in-person testing at the testing centers and online testing. So this is really the whole pandemic thing. It really could be changing the way that GED testing is done online. So just something interesting to think about here. But yeah, unfortunately, a lot of people aren't going to be able to test right now. And so also, here's something else that's been coming up here, and that's online testing requires you to take a practice test first before you can test. And not just take a practice test, really. It requires you to pass that practice test, right? You have to get that green score. So this is something different because for in-person testing, right, in most places, you're not required to take a GED-ready practice test before you can go take the test. Now, I know that there's certain states, I can't remember which ones offhand, but I know that there are certain places where they do require you to take a practice test and to pass it before you go and take the real test. But an interesting question, though, to think about is, should it be up to the individual to decide if they should take a practice test first? Should people be forced by the testing service to pass these practice tests before they take the real thing, or should it be up to them? And so this is something interesting. I'd like to hear some feedback, some thoughts on this in the comments below, just to hear different opinions on this. And so my take on this, it might not be what everyone wants to hear, but I don't think this is a terrible idea here because there is research done showing that students who take practice tests first before they take the real test are much more likely to pass and much more likely to get a higher score. So taking a practice test, that's always something good to do before you take the test. And especially if you get that passing score on a GED-ready practice test, it's a good indicator. Of course, there's no guarantee, but it's a really good indicator that you're going to pass. So the testing center, though, they have lowered the cost of practice tests. So as of right now, I think it's $3 to take a practice test for each section instead of $6. So hopefully that does help some people out. I know that money's hard to come by. Jobs are hard to come by right now for a lot of people. And an ironic thing is that for people who want to pass the GED to get that better job, right now you might be struggling to find that job because you need to get the GED done first. And unfortunately, that's just the way it is. But anyway, it'd be nice if the GED testing service, if the tests were free right now to take those practice tests. I think that if they're going to require you to do a practice test first, I think that it'd be nice if they were free so you don't have to pay for it. But they did lower the cost. They cut the cost of practice tests in half right now. So that is something that I will give them credit for. So like I said, it's just something interesting to think about here. And I know a lot of people might not agree, but I do tend to lean favorably towards the testing center, their position on this, because I do think that if you pass a practice test before you take the real thing, I think that you're much more likely to pass. But at the same time, I don't know if it should be a requirement or not. So just an interesting little controversy that's stirring up. I know there's been some debate about that. But one of the biggest things that a lot of people are talking about right now is that pen and paper is not allowed for the math right now, or for the whole test for that matter. So when you go and take the test on the computer versus doing it in person, you're not going to have any scratch paper. You can do your scratch work on the computer, but it's not the same as pen and paper, and it's certainly not the same as a whiteboard. So for some people, I know that they're just waiting until the testing centers open up because they don't want to deal with this. They feel like they need to use pen and paper, and this is just a big deal for a lot of people. And I know that I've heard from another GED teacher who had a student who failed the math by, I think, 4 or 5 points, something like that. And the teacher was really frustrated because that person felt that the student would have been able to get that passing score if they could have done their work with pen and paper. And so this is kind of interesting here. I'm not sure why they don't have a better system for letting people use pen and paper. I think a whiteboard would be good because you're going to be videotaped while you're doing the test, which is another point I'm coming to in a second here. But if you show the proctor through your computer that you are writing on a whiteboard and then you can just erase it after the test is done, I think that would be fair. Also, or you could just maybe rip your scratch paper up on camera. Something like that I think would be a better idea than not letting people use pen and paper. I think they're really concerned about cheating. But the thing is that there's actually three, or at least there used to be three different versions of each GED test section that come out. So if you take a test, even if hypothetically you wrote down all the questions and you showed it to somebody else, that person doesn't have that good of a chance of even getting that same exact version of the GED test. So I'm not really sure what's going on with this right now, but hopefully you'll be able to use pen and paper, or at least get a whiteboard to use for online testing in the future. For some people, this isn't that big of an issue, but I know that a lot of people have been upset about this. And also, here's another little controversy that's bubbling up here. You have to allow pictures of your surroundings. So some people are concerned about what's going to happen to the pictures of their house that are taken through your computer, because there's a proctor that will be monitoring you through a camera while you take the test. And they also have access to your desktop. So this is done to prevent you from cheating. And honestly here, to me, I kind of think this is a non-issue. I don't think it's really that big of a deal. I can certainly respect and understand why somebody would be concerned about pictures of their house and stuff being stored like in a database somewhere. So I understand why this would be a concern, but for me this is kind of a non-issue because I don't think it's really that big of a deal, especially if you take it in a place where, take photos off the walls, get everything out of the view of the camera that could be personally identifying information. I mean, this is a pretty standard way to do it. When I was in college before, when I had an online class, I had to do it like this where someone watched me through the computer, and I don't think it's really that big of a deal, but I can certainly understand why some people would be concerned about this, but definitely something else to think about here. But I really don't think you have much to worry about personally, so anyway, so the fifth one here is people saying they took multiple test sections online. So I keep seeing this. I've seen it on the comments on my videos. I've seen it on comments on other YouTube videos. And I've seen people on the GED Reddit page that have been saying this too. And as far the information that I'm reading here, that I've based all the data that I've given you in this video comes right from the GED Testing Service website with information that they have posted right now. So unless their own information is not accurate and up to date, which I find hard to believe, it's either one of two things. Either the testing service has made changes and those aren't all posted on their website publicly yet. That could be, or people are just lying and making this up. So I am skeptical of anybody who's saying that they're taking multiple test sections online or saying, oh, I got 3 of my sections done online, because as of right now, the information that the testing service has released publicly, it's saying that you have to have had 3 test sections done before you can take the test online. So really, if you're eligible to take the test online right now, that means you only have 1 test section left to take. So I'm not sure. I think people are just, honestly, I think some people are just making this up right now, but just something I'm skeptical of, and something you should be skeptical of if you see people saying they took multiple test sections online, because like I said, the info that the testing service has put out publicly right now, that doesn't indicate that you can do this yet. And like I said, I'll certainly post an update in the comments if once this changes, and if it's changed already, but I could not find any indication that it has changed yet. So just be skeptical of people that are saying this. And also, some people want to know, are the costs going to differ? And the short answer to this one is no. There's no difference in cost between taking it online and in person. And so also, another thing that some people are concerned about is online attempts. So as of right now, you only get 1 chance to take your test section online. So right now, whether you're eligible or not, it's only going to benefit you to keep studying and to keep working hard. So I have a big playlist of some of my best GED videos to help you prepare for the GED test. So you can click on that playlist and you can go and watch those videos and work on improving your score right now.